Playmaker TV episode 13. I think about it all the time, but I can't believe we've done 12 episodes already. And as usual, I'm having the best of experts, what we are going to talk about here, and that's Jesper Haglöf, who is a data analyst and also a football expert at Playmaker. And Playmaker is a football analysis platform made in Sweden, actually. Have to say that to remind you all why we are here. We're going to talk about data and football.
Yes.
Jesper, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Can't complain. I'm starting to get we're not there yet, but I'm already starting to get some spring feeling, and I think with Svenska Cupen for the Swedish Cup is starting this weekend, and the season is not too far away, and there's also more sunlight. So, and that brings up my mood a lot.
Yeah, great for you, because I just arrived inside because I've been shoveling snow and I'm all sweaty. It has been snowing here all morning and all day. So, but I'm glad you feel the spring coming.
Yeah.
Coming along well. Yeah, but I do agree. There's going to be a lot of fun when the competition season kicks off in Sweden this weekend for women's football as well.
Yes.
Because this weekend we have the Swedish League Cup kicking off the group stage. It's going to be mighty fun, and we have had an international break that has just ended, and we are going to talk about standout players and interesting players that have just showed off during this break. But before we do that, we are going to talk about Playmaker's new website, or Playmaker's website 2.0 version.
Yeah, we had a website before, but now we're not talking about the application. Now we're talking about what everyone can see, even if you're not a customer. And that website was not as good as the new one. So now we have an updated website here, playmaker.ai. And you can see some of our services here, individual player reports that I make, and I also do the programming for the different kind of KPIs and avatars, player roles, and to make scouting easier. You can go into a service like that and read more about it, what we do, and in-depth information about the player report, see example. Also how to contact us if you want to have this as a service, you want help. You could be an agent that wants data ahead of a new, finding a new club, or talking about a new contract, or it could be a team that needs to find a new fullback and would like to have some material on good fullbacks that could fit into their club, and then do the other scouting later. So you can see your own services as well. You can, if you're a football club, how can we help you? If you're agent, media companies, if you're working with betting, research and educators like universities or football, like if for the Swedish FA, for example, if they would like us to come and educate about data analysis, or for example. And I would be happy to travel anywhere in the world if you would like to have me there. Or so.
Yeah, Jesper is sick of Sweden. He wants the summer coming really quickly. So please tell him to go to Spain or something. He will be happy about that. But we also have to mention that the fact is that agents and scouts and clubs and also players themselves could get in touch with you to get some really good insights about themselves and about other clubs and stuff like that you just mentioned. But also the fact is that you are providing media companies with, I would say, really good and quality media content to
Yes.
if you write about football, you will get a lot of good, like, just graphics and pictures for what you want to create. If you are a broadcasting company, if you are a writer, yeah, then get in touch, because it makes the articles more fun to write, and also hopefully more easy to read, and with the explanations. We've
Yeah.
you and I have been working a lot together to create articles like that, which you can also find on the website.
Exactly. So, like, for example, the articles that we make together, but also we are working closely with Seymour and Telia that broadcasts the Champions League and they Italian football, Spanish, and you can find out information about that, and also how we work with Svenska Spel. And so on. And you talked about the articles that you've written, Mia. We have some of them here. If you press Insights with Playmaker AI, there are some links here. So you have here, for example, the tactical analysis of Magdalena Eriksson that we did ahead of the Euros. So it's starting to become 1 year old. But if you would read into this article, you would recognize a lot of the graphics and so on.
Yeah, and I'm thinking we should go back, like, after the season, to sort of do something similar with maybe her again, to see what the differences have been, looking at her data from this season.
Yeah.
Just to
And one thing, last but not least, the cool thing is if you press the YouTube symbol here, you come to Playmaker TV's YouTube channel.
Oh, you
can see we're live here.
Yeah, we love to see
Inception.
to see that. Yeah, that's spooky. Yeah.
But yeah, let's get on to the episode, right?
Yeah, let's get on to the episode. I mean, we were kind of talking about this. Obviously, we always speak about what players or what data we want to show off when we do these episodes. But we have, like, the thing is that there have been players that have been real standouts during this break. And it's not just the players that we are going to show. We know that there are a lot of good players out there playing in the national teams. But we, for natural reasons, also want to talk about Swedish national team players. One that made her debut, and one that kind of looks like she's a new signing, you would say, but just did really well in both games. Started one and got subbed in the second one against Germany when Sweden played. So, but I do think that this first player we are going to talk about, it's an English national team player that scored her first goal for England and has been just outstanding in the WSL also, right, Jesper? Who is it? Who is it?
It's Lauren James that we're going to talk about. Former Manchester United player, now Chelsea. And outstanding season. And as you said, scored a goal here for England. And what we're looking at first, if you've watched several of our episodes, or just follow me or Playmaker on Twitter, you've been maybe you're almost getting used to these spiders. But we have the positional spider here for offensive wingers to the left, and we have the regular spider compared to offensive wingers to the right. And Lauren James has mostly played as a right winger, which is what she's characterized here. But we will see some more depth into her role later in this presentation. But you can see here, for example, that if you look at how many goals she scores, non-penalty goals per 90, it's very high compared to other wingers. And then when it comes to dribbles, an expected threat, but then also in general that she adds a lot of different qualities. She's very good in winning the ball back when it comes to winning the ball in the air, stealing passes from opponents with interceptions, making that last pass. So there's a lot of different qualities, really. Lauren.
Yeah, and the fact is that she's not that old yet.
No.
It's kind of scary to know that there's a lot more that can get better. But can we go back to the spider picture again? Because I want to ask you something about this.
Yeah.
Actually, we haven't, because this is the black spider is obviously the average.
Yeah.
But this is just from this season, right? And she's just compared to other in her position in the WSL.
Yeah, so this is just compared to other offensive wingers in Women's Super League this season, 22-23.
Yeah, exactly.
The season that has been played, 13 games for some, 12 for some teams. The table is lacking a bit, but that's what she's compared to.
Yeah.
Just
have to make sure that people realize that this is what we compare the players to.
And offensive wingers, the explanation for that position group is really players that play as wingers on the midfield. So it's not wing backs, it's not full backs. An offensive winger could be a winger in a 4-4-2 system or 4-4-1 or something like that, but it could also be an inner forward in a 4-3-3 system or 3-4-3 or something like that.
Yeah. Is there anything in these spiders you think is worth like highlighting when it comes to Lauren James?
I think it's like when it comes to spiders in general, you would like to think that if the spider is just completely red, the player that's the best player. And like, if you're best in all the categories, of course you're an excellent player and probably the best. But necessarily, like if you look at the player ranking we make, you don't need to be like especially wide and be good at several things necessarily. You can just be like among the best in the categories or in the KPIs where you are good. But what you can say about Lauren James is that she is like a broad player that you get different qualities out of. Like she's both a chance creator through her dribbling, but also through her passes, but also that she has the ball winning edge. And like when Chelsea puts pressure on the opponent to win the balls high, she is very useful in those situations. And that's like it's an effect of Chelsea's system, but also that she's a really good player and also why she's getting a lot of time on the field.
So let's talk about where this is not what I'm saying that she's a bad player where it's the black area that shows, but you know what I mean. Let's talk about those metrics. What can you say about those?
Yeah, that's a good question. So if we talk about the one where she's actually the lowest in expected threat received, that's a metric that describes like how much of a target player someone is, or like if you have a very high expected threat receive value, then you're receiving a lot of expected threat, and that's really that you're receiving passes that are increasing the odds of scoring a lot. And players that has a very high expected threat received value in general, that's players that either are like more of target players in the box, offensive target players, like when we talked about Bethany England, for example, or Khadija Shaw, but it can also be players that are very good at receiving through balls and like running routes and receiving balls behind the defensive line. And although she can do stuff like that as well, we will see in the pitch plots later that's not something that characterizes her the most. So it doesn't say that she's bad at that. I think it more describes her role at Chelsea, that she's more receiving the ball earlier, and she's not really a target in the golden zone in the opponent's penalty area either.
Yeah, I mean, she's brilliant when she kind of drops deep, I would say, and then just take the ball up herself.
And Chelsea have Sam Kerr for that, really. If we would look at her spider, she would have a very high value for that. And when it comes to touches in the box relates to what we talked about. Like if you have a lot of touches in the box, you're usually a target player or more of a striker poacher. And crosses, she's not really doing crosses that much, like into the box. So she's like Lauren Hemp, for example, would have higher numbers there because she's doing the pass earlier and like trying to find someone in there. Like what characterizes Lauren is more that she progresses the ball into the box and makes the shorter pass. And shot assist, like she's around average, and that's shot assist is just the last pass, so it's a key pass or an assist, and so she does them, but like since she's scoring a lot, you can see that she usually comes into a situation where the best case is to shoot and not pass. And also, like, since she has a very high expected threat passing value, you can see that when it comes to generating chances through passes and making good passes in the final third, she has those qualities. But she's not characterized by making the last pass in that extent.
And then the duels in the other spider, explain that.
Yeah, when it comes to duels, we can see that like she has the tackles and she's doing the tackles good, but when it comes to duels in the average position spider, it maybe more comes into the sense that she's not doing the high amount of duels, and then also like she's not maybe like doing the duels that necessarily helps her team to defend in that high sense. Like she's not characterized as she's not a defensive duelist really. She has very high defensive skills, but she's not doing the duels in that amount. I don't know if that makes sense really, but it's
it makes sense. But then I have another question, obviously, and that is, could this be because she's playing in Chelsea? If you know what I mean, that if you're an offensive player in Chelsea who is number one in the WSL at the moment, could that be a reason? Or
that could definitely be a reason. Like the general spider in that sense is still very good, but it's the positional spider with the adjusted everything that tells a deeper story. So since she's playing in Chelsea, that's part of it, of course.
Yeah. Well, okay, then we have talked more in depth about the spiders, so let's move on.
Yes. Okay, so here we have the heat map. I haven't put out any label here, but if you're watching this episode before, you've already learned, but I will talk through it. So here we have two heat maps, and the red heat map here with the brighter white areas, that's a defensive heat map. So
this actually look like a right back in some sense.
Yeah, it does actually, and I think that's because in some sense she's acting as a wing back defensively in some bits. We will see that when we look at the pass networks here. But I agree, and then she's progressing a lot, and her like offensive cluster here in white is higher up.
Yeah.
Then we have the passes here. So the passes and the carries here, you can see that it's like acting. It's like kind of similar to the offensive heat map. Like it has the same pattern. What's maybe can be seen a bit clearer is that she's playing mostly to the right, and in some games she's been acting more as in a central role. And like she has a few actions from the left. And when I looked into her pass networks game per game, there is actually like one game at least where she has a cluster that is more to the left. I think I have the example coming, but also like that is sometimes during the games when Chelsea have the wingers switching side, like they stay there for a while and they allow that freedom, like in order to compass the defense. Here we have some more maps. So here we have some progressive actions. You can also see that they are localized more to the right, but you can also see that she has some to the left here. And the blue are carries and the yellow are passes. So what you can have as information from this, coming from looking at several players, is that Lauren James is really good at doing both. And we can see that in the spider as well, that she was compared to other players in Women's Super League, she was the best when it came to generating chances through carries. So you can see that there's a lot of blue here. But when it came to passes, she's also way better than average. And she has a very Swedish colored map here, blue and yellow.
Yeah, I was about to say that Jesper, you are a Swede, so you have indeed picked the right colors to
Yeah.
show off in your graphs.
I don't think I thought about that when I made this graphic, but now I thought about
now you just it's unconsciously made.
Yeah.
Yeah, they look good though.
Yeah, thank you. And then we have the progressive receptions here, and that's really where she has, like, if you look at here's her progressive actions, but when teammates have made progressive passes and she has been the recipient of those passes, like where have she been located and where did the pass come from? And it's hard to, like, when you look at a season, it's hard to like follow every arrow to a certain position, but you can see the pattern that she's acting like she's receiving a lot of ball very far out wide, but she's also like working her way into the zone 14 here from the right. And she has like, she doesn't have that many receptions in the box. Like I can almost count them on this map. And she didn't have the high expected threat received value either. Although you can see here, like if you're looking at both of these maps at the same time, so you can see that she has a lot of carries and passes into the penalty area. And that really comes back to when we talked about the spider, that Lauren James is not really the recipient in the box in that sense. Like she's not running the routes into the box as an in and forward could do. That other players, she's more of the player that progresses the ball into the opponent box.
Yeah.
And then shoots or makes the pass. Often shoots. Key passes, they're all into the box. And when we look at, even though we see here that she plays a lot to the right, I think it's kind of interesting that when you look at her shot map, it's very centered. So like some players that plays as offensive winger or inner forwards, they have a shot map that is like more located to one side. And you could maybe argue that this one is a little bit more located to the right, but still it's very centered. And most of her goals has been here when she's been coming and running into the golden zone, either from zone 14, just outside of the penalty area here, or here.
Yeah, and we can say that you and I, we when we wrote about Pernille Harder, we wrote a lot about zone 14 and what that is. We could link to that article under this episode to if anyone is interested to read about the zone 14.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so avatars, or we call them avatars at Playmaker, but what they really are is like a player role description. So we use the data we collect, and through machine learning, we determine like in which clusters the players match, like what kind of player role are they and what can they provide. Some players are really closely linked to maybe one or two roles, while other players have more of a broad spectrum. And that's what we can see here with Lauren James. And if they have several matches, what does that mean? Like I think it's a mix of like that the player could have been used in several different roles during the season, or that her role is hard to describe with one because she's acting in more of a hybrid kind of role. But it also like can tell you that if she's been acting most as an inner forward, maybe attacking star, it can also tell you like in which role she could be good if she would play in a different system. And I think
is this like avatar and player profile spider? Would you say that this is similar to many other in her position?
No, I would say that she she brings more to the table. Like she matches more profiles. Like attacking star is not the most common, and that comes from her high production of scoring goals and also contributing with shot assists. So like if you're contributing with a lot of points or like chances that could lead to points, that makes you an attacking star. We talked about, for example, her not making the crosses, and Lauren Hemp, for example, she's also matches a bit with attacking star, but she matches a lot with the classic winger, and the classic winger is a player that does more crosses and keeps like she stays further out in the outer corridors more offensively on the pitch and contributes with crosses like the classical wingers would do back in the days.
Yeah.
And Lauren James doesn't have that role as we saw in the pitch plots. She more like runs into the zone 14 or like just outside the penalty area and then into it. When it comes to deep threat is a player that is like both could have very high XT received values from like running routes. Lauren James didn't have that, so that's why it's not a perfect match. Although the deep threat is usually very good from like running with the ball and like running in between a defensive line and coming behind defensive line to later shoot or pass, and that's what Lauren James does. Like, so she doesn't really receive a lot of balls, but she's very good at running through the defensive line.
Yeah.
And creator and playmaker, they come from a bit of the same, that she has very high expected threat values and she contributes a lot with chances. Like her actions make the possession become more dangerous for the opponent, generates more values. And like creator is the playmaker's name of being more of a wide playmaker, as playmaker is someone that is more acting central. And why she matches with playmaker, that actually comes from, even though she being a winger, she finds herself running or moving into the central areas and acting as a playmaker there as well. So it's kind of interesting, like that's maybe not her best position, but it could say that if Chelsea would need to, she would probably be pretty proper to play as a number 10 as well.
Yeah. I'm sure many would agree with that too. I know that there's been a lot of talk about it, and I'm pretty sure she said herself one time that she could see herself playing as a number 10.
Yeah. And here we have the icon here with the star, and that's her best match. And that's the same icons as we have on the Playmaker player reports. And for the moment, we have a mix of like they're unisex really. So if you see someone like they're not like we don't have for like genders, like they're unisex icons. Yes, pass networks. I really like digging into these expected threat pass networks. I think like when I generate those for all of Lauren James games, or if I scout any players and I just generate them for all the games, you could really tell like how the player's been used, and if you can see a pattern, if the player is like acting in the same way or if you have them differently. So for these episodes, I usually choose to 3 pass networks that I think describes different parts of her game. So we can see in general that Chelsea is acting, they're an offensive team. But you can see here, like if we start to the right, here we have one where Perisset has been having a lot of ball, and James has mostly received directly from Millie Bright in this game. If there's no arrow here, that means we can see it in text right here, but I can explain. That doesn't mean that there hasn't been no passes between Lauren James and Sam Kerr or Perisset or Lauren James. It just means that they are less than 5 connections, like 5 passes in total in between them. And to make the pass network not be as many patterns and hard to read, I also think it's interesting to see that when you look at the pass network for this game, you can see that there wasn't really any strong link in between Perisset and James in this game. And if you look through several games, you can see that in general, even though if they play close to each other, the true connection is really from the central midfielder. In this game, it was from Millie Bright. That like she used to maybe make the attack go even faster. They had the directive to like just when Perisset go out wide, she maybe opens space, and then Millie Bright can make the pass to Lauren James immediately that runs down, and then Chelsea can attack faster. And that Lauren James dot is very dark here. That's because she generates a lot of values later from carrying the ball and dribbling and moving into more attractive areas. In this game, I should mark out opponents maybe for interest of the viewers, but in this game, Chelsea has been a little bit more offensive, but you can see that Lauren James on average acted more as a number 10 in this game, which is kind of interesting. So Perisset could push and control the right wing here, as well as Lauren James acted more as a number 10 ahead of Cuthbert and Fleming and behind Kerr in this game. And then the most common pass networks looks like this, that okay, maybe not that Perisset, like this game, Perisset had a tougher one. She was really not part of the game that much. You can also see, especially on this map, but I think you can see on all maps. Now, this is not a episode about Madelen Eriksson, but you can really see that she's like kind of a motor in all these path networks, especially in this game. Like all the attack starts from Eriksson. But here you can see that Lauren James also has the connection to Millie Bright for sure, and you can see also that she has a very strong connection with Wrighton. Although they're both playing on the wing, they have a very strong connection. And I think that's because like Chelsea, when we talked about the teams in general, like Chelsea is not playing the short pass. They want to like make the passes to move in between a line or several lines in one go, and like make the attacks go faster and harder for the other team to establish a defense quick enough. And you can really see it here that they have a lot of long connections, like Millie Bright. And I'm sure this is not a coincidence. I'm sure this is like directives from Chelsea when they make their game plan. Like,
I mean, they're like when we have looked at Chelsea's data as a team. I know when we did the episode about the teams that we could see that Manchester United and Chelsea were the teams in like the 5 big leagues in Europe that had the widest play, but also the fact that Chelsea passed the ball longest on average from all teams we looked at, top teams in Europe. And so that is going to be so interesting to see when they go into the Champions League to play, how that style of play, if we're about to look at the passing networks after the 2 games they are going to play against Lyon. How Lyon is gonna stop those passes. But that's for another episode.
That's for another episode. But really interesting. Okay, so now I took out some stats where you can see again, like we talked about this already, but if you compare Lauren James to other attacking midfielders, and what's attacking midfielders, so that's really players that are playing offensive winger or is acting as a number 10. So not a regular central midfielder, but a player that is acting as a number 10 or offensive midfielder, like between the midfield line and the striker. And you can see here that she has the second most dribbles per 90, but she has also a very high dribble percentage. Sometimes you can see a pattern that players that has a very high amount of successful dribbles per 90, there are also players that try to dribble a lot, and maybe the percentage is not the best. So that's why like it's very nice to have a scatter plot when you're analyzing players, dribblers, or like when we talked about in the article for Jonna that Mia made, like when it comes to tackles, you can also see like how successful are they. And here you can see that I would say she's almost unstoppable, but it's very good to have a dribble percentage of not almost 90% that and still make around 7 dribbles per game. So remarkably good. Here you can see expected threat passes and carries. So for the filter I made, we talked about like she's not Lauren James is not bad at generating chances through passes, but we could see in the pass networks that like she was and also in the spiders that she's mostly generating chances through expected threat carries, and there she's the best. Like in that measurement, like when it comes to generating chances through carries and dribbles, she's number 1. And we didn't have Playmaker last season, but I know me and Mia shared plots of someone being best in both measurements, and I thought it was like it's very rare, but this season we have a player that's almost best, up in the right corner, and I think Mia knows who this is.
You're putting me on the spot, but is it Lauren Hemp?
Maybe? It's Lauren Hemp.
It's Lauren Hemp.
She was best in both measurements last year, but now Lauren James is better when it comes to dribbling and carrying.
I mean, it's interesting though also, but Lauren Hemp is on the left for most of the time for Manchester City. And then you have a player like Chloe Kelly that played together with Lauren James the other night, I think, in England's match. and they created a lot of good things together. So I do
Yeah.
think that you named this episode "Players on the Rise," and I think that if you're an English fan or you live in England and this is your national team, then you should be very happy looking at these plots.
Yeah, I mean, imagine the World Cup having Lauren Hemp like on the left, Lauren James on the right, and then maybe Frank Kirby as number 10. And
Yeah, and then we haven't even mentioned Kelly in there. So you do know that the headache for Sarina Wichmann is
or Russo,
must be
or
there.
I don't know.
Must be there. Yeah, must be there.
Yeah, and then when it comes to goal scoring, like you can see over this season that she generates, like she's expected to score about 0.2 goals per game, but she scores almost more than the double. So for now, she also has a very good run when it comes to finishing. Like she's very efficient. And I also took out these when it comes to like interceptions, like stealing the opponent pass and making tackles. You could see that she's she's not like, there are three other players that are way ahead, but she's still almost like she's ahead of all the other players. So she's really good when it comes to that. And 750, we could have made this lower. Like this still players that have been starting very frequently, but like she's doing a great job. That was her.
Yeah, and on to the next. Someone we did say we were going to talk about more in depth way back, but I mean, obviously with the big players out of Norway right now, such as Ada Hegerberg, Caroline Graham Hansen, and Ingrid Syrstad Engen. Frida Manum, I was thinking before the break that going into the break with Norway, she was gonna be an important player together with obviously Guro Reiten and for Norway's attack, because Guro Reiten and Frida Manum have been playing regularly for their clubs in the WSL. So and I mean, I watched their game against France, and that was a mad game. I've was a long time ago I've seen a national team play with such passion, such eager, such like pride to be wearing their national team shirt, like every player in Norway did when they played against France. And it was a draw, it was 0-0, but I'm telling you that Norway could have easily been in the lead before the break with like 3 or 4 goals.
Yeah,
I think Guro Reiten hit both the post and the crossbar within 2 minutes right before the first half ended. But enough about Guro Reiten, because we're here to talk about Frida Manum. But I was just giving you a background to why I think Frida Manum will be and already is a very important player for Norway here and now, but also in the future.
Yes. And Frida Manum, when it comes to number 10s or like attacking central midfielders, she's been outstanding. And like she's been for all of it except when it comes to maybe more defensive metrics, she's outstanding. Like she both generates chances when you talk about expected threat, but she also makes the last pass before the shot, and she has a lot of touches in the box. Like she's very good at like crashing the box and coming like from behind and running all the way up. I almost think the spider talks for itself. And I think I had Frida Manum in the episode when we summed up the like half of the season so far and the players with the best performances. And
we also have to mention that when Frida signed for Arsenal and when she started to get minutes, she actually played as a number 6. I think number 6, number 8 kind of thing. And then the fact is that when I've been speaking to her, she has been pretty honest about that she sees herself as the best version of her as a footballer that is in the number 10 role.
Yeah.
And I think she has data now to and obviously videos to back that up. Like that statement is up in the air, and it's true that she is a great number 10.
Yeah, a great number 10. And we will see some more of that actually when we go into the past networks, what you mentioned, which I think is kind of interesting. Yeah, when it comes to the heat maps, you can see here that offensively, like she's acting very mostly in the center. She has like some game where she's acting more as a winger, but like otherwise, like in general, she's acting more as an attacking midfielder. You can see most of the actions are really on the offensive half and in the final third. But when it comes defensively, you can see that she's or how Arsenal defends, like she's acting more to the right, and she has some games when she's taking more of a role to the left. But I think that's come from positioning when the opponent has the ball and like where she puts on the pressure, which is kind of interesting. And when it comes to passes and carries, you can see that there are more like all over the pitch, really, as it looks for a central midfielder with a lot of ball. But you can also see here that the cluster is more on the offensive side, and that also comes from where Arsenal wants to have ball, but also from Arsenal being a very dominant team, of course.
Yeah.
When it comes from progressive actions, she also has a lot of carries, like maybe a little bit more passes. When it comes from the progressive actions, and you can see that she's a good transporter. Like she has a lot of long progressive actions where she's moving the ball very long in one pass. Like so, a lot of long balls here. Even though if it's from the first third to the central, or from the central to the last third, or into the penalty area. When it comes from receiving the ball, you can see that she's. It's kind of the same pattern that she's receiving a lot of the shorter passes from the defense in the central third, and she has like passes coming from the corridors, like more into zone 14 where we have here, and then also some interesting from like the box crashing part that I talked about, that she has passes that are going like that are not progressive, that are going diagonally back into the golden zone, where she receives them and makes most of her finishes, as we can see here. And she also has a good turnover, scoring 4 goals so far.
Yeah, in the league, because
in
we
the
know
league,
that she has been scoring a lot of goals across the competition.
It's good that you mentioned that, in the league, of course. Okay, so here's her spider, and that's her spider is also very interesting from her like having several matches, and I think that's because she's been used in some different roles all over the season, which we will see in the past networks as well, but also like that she has a bunch of qualities. Her spider was also like, we could see that she has a lot of tools that she can bring to the team, just as Lauren James, and you can see that she matches the creator and the playmaker from acting as a chance, creating chances in the final third, and that she matches more to the creator than the playmaker is that she's acting like since she's a attacking midfielder and acting a lot in the final third, she's doing her playmaking very high up the field and not being like a deeper playmaker in that sense. Acting more in the central third. And then when it comes from like poacher and target and artist, that comes from her box crashing, really, that although she's acting as an offensive mid, she's very good like in following the team up in the offense and coming to finishes in the golden zone, which is kind of like rare compared to other attacking midfielders in the level that she does that. And false 9, I think that's more like symbolizing her qualities, that in another system she could definitely be used as a false 9 if you would play in a 4-3 system and have someone that and a forward that can do more than just linking and shooting, and she will be perfect in a system like that with her qualities.
Yeah.
And this is the unisex icon for the creator.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of funny because when she was in Linköping, I know that when I was there to photograph their training sessions, once in a while, you could really. She was the one that stayed after to practice her shooting.
Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
yeah, it was always her, and actually also Lina Hurtig when Lina Hurtig played in Linköping.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. She it pays off.
Yeah, it obviously it has.
Okay, so pass networks. So here I've also taken out some different pass networks, and this one is from this one is from earlier from the season, if I remember correctly. Where you can see that Madelen has a position that is like further down the pitch, like more as a central midfielder. And you can also see, you saw that she had a defensive cluster more to the right, and you can see in a game like this, and I also think even in this one, if you would look more at defensive actions in the central one, that then she moves down to the right, and Velti has more of the left assignment when it comes from the defense and having the shape of a midfield. Then she moved up, so this is more of a typical position when she's acting more of a number 10, and she has like Stina Blackstenius more as a striker and also forward being more offensive. And and Mead more out to the right. Now I don't know, when did Mead get injured? How long ago was that? So maybe these ones are.
Oh, I think that was in November, perhaps.
Yeah.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, but so and this one and this pass network is a bit similar to the other ones. The only like exception here is that they have Little that is playing more as a central and more have of the 4-2-3-1 system. Or you can see that Mead is like, while as Ford is more running deep, Mead is like going deeper, further down into the pitch, and like receiving the ball there and then progressing.
I mean, this is also interesting because I do think that we will have reasons to go back to Arsenal in particular when the season is over, to look at how Arsenal played with Mead and then what happened without Mead.
Yeah.
Because I know people talk a lot about the fact that Vivianne Miedema is not there, but then they have Frida Maanum. She can play that role quite well. But also that Vivianne Miedema was the number 9, and now it's Stina Blackstenius. And what does the absence of Mead cause in consequences, I would say, for a player like Stina Blackstenius?
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. That's a very interesting topic. And I didn't have the pass network here, but this like there was 1 or 2 games where Maanum was having on average almost as a offensive position as Blackstenius and Ford, where they were more of a lined up 3 in the front. So like they're like and that comes from like when we saw her matching more to a forward or a false 9. That comes from the very high on average position that she has in some games.
Yeah. I do think that would be a quite interesting article to write, maybe in Swedish media, about Stina Blackstenius.
Definitely.
It's a very. I just think that's a very interesting topic at the moment, because Stina Blackstenius, we know that she is one of the best strikers actually in the world, but she has a few qualities where she really has quality if being used that way. But then I do think that the biggest difference now in Arsenal, where Frida Maanum also has to take a bigger role, obviously, that must be so many consequences to lose a player like Beth Mead, because I do think that she's quite unique.
Yeah, she's one of the best in the world. So
yeah, and also like not just the best, one of the best in the world, but I do think that she is, her qualities and her movement on the pitch. I don't think there's many in the same position that moves like her, and that creates something within a team as well. But we can go back to that.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I have some more graphs here. Now it's Frida Mannen that is marked out. Lauren James was this one from the other graphs. But then you can see that she's generating even more chances than Lauren James when it comes to expected goals, or like coming into more of those areas. And her she's also performing over the line of scoring as many goals as the chances you generate or end up shooting.
Yeah.
And so like she's performing very well in that sense. When it comes to expected threat from carrying and passing, we can see that she's a bit further down the line, and I think that's really like, if you would look at expected threat per pass, she would maybe be like, she's maybe not as high as Lauren James, and also like that's maybe keeping her number down, because like all the passes she makes as a number 10 and having a lot of ball is not all progressive. Like, so she's doing a lot, and from she's generating a lot of value, but she also does passes to use to keep in possession and so on.
Yeah.
Dribbles per 90. Same graph as Lauren James, also a bit further down. She's not dribbling as much. She's dribbling a lot from being a central midfielder, but if we compare to all attacking midfielders, same plot as before, she's a bit down. But for a midfielder, the numbers are great. And then I had this one. I didn't have that in the last one. I think it's like, so we have progressive passes percentage. So like how many passes that you pass towards the opponent goals are accurate, and how many progressive passes per 90 do you make on average. And then you can see that her passing percentage is good. It's above average, and also the amount of successful passes she does, there's only three players that makes more progressive passes than her.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was the last one.
Yeah, and now we're gonna move into Sweden. Obviously, we have interests in Sweden, but there was one player that we're gonna start with that has been in the Swedish national team for a couple of years now. Not a couple of years. I mean, she did great already in the World Cup in 2019 in France. Yeah. But now, when she played against China, she was, I think it's no understatement that she was Sweden's best player in that game.
No, she was outstanding.
Yeah, she really was. And this is a player that she plays in Hammarby IF in the Damallsvenskan, who also has Jonna Andersson, and they have also signed NWSL player, Swedish, from Washington Spirit, Julia Roddar, ahead of this season. So it's going to be very, very interesting to watch Hammarby in the Swedish league this upcoming season.
Yeah, and talking about Lauren James not being in the European Championships, Madelen Janogy is also great, but she was not in the squad in the Euros.
Yeah, exactly. So
although she played championships before, but not.
Yeah. But it's gonna be. I do think it's no wild guess that she will definitely be in competition for being selected for the World Cup.
I think so.
So fingers crossed for no injuries or anything bad.
Yeah, and I think there's a good season coming up for Hammarby. Actually, that will like also make her chances become even better.
Yeah.
Her spider. There are also more characterized by her offensive skills, but you can see that she's like acting most as a number 10 also from her actions from the pitch, and we look a little bit more into that later. But yeah, she generates a very high expected goals. She also performs very well at the chances that she generates. Compared to Lauren James, she also has a very high expected threat receiving from receiving balls from behind the defensive line and in the box. And she also makes more crosses than Lauren James. So she also has so she's she's wide, and I think that's also because like since she's a key player for Hammarby, she's like important in a lot of different ways in their offense.
Yeah, and also Hammarby played a very attacking, high pressing, and offensive football last season.
Yeah,
and I would probably guess, without being completely wrong, that is what we're gonna see from them this season also.
Yeah, I agree.
And also she will have a partner up front. I think Maika Hamano, the Japanese youngster who is on loan from Chelsea to play in Hammarby this season. Those two are going to be very interesting to see together.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, if you look at her heat map, you can see that she's acting almost all over the pitch. She has like a center that is more to the right, but she has a lot of actions central, and she has a lot of actions to the left. You can see, if you really analyze this one closer, there's a lot of crosses here. There's also a cluster of passes that comes from kickoff, which I think is interesting.
Yeah.
And then she has carries, and the carries are like she has a lot of long carries, like from receiving balls behind the line, if you watch it on video as well. But then also like a lot of runs that are used in the outer corridor and try to make it into the offensive penalty area.
Yeah, it's very clear on that picture there.
And just Lauren James is like she's good at both carrying and passing the ball, or like she does both a lot. And she has the longer runs. They mostly come from counterattacks, the longer runs here when they are further back. And then there's a lot of runs into the penalty area. The difference with Lauren James, if we would have the pictures of her progressive receptions next to Madelen Janogy, is that the penalty area is you can't see lines of the penalty area because there are so many receptions, and that's a difference for Lauren James. So Janogy is also acting as a target in the box in some sense.
Yes, I mean, from what you're saying, I do think we can agree that she is a very important player for Hammarby's offensive play.
Yeah, I would say that she's like not saying like putting it in a bad way for Lauren James, but I would say that Janogy is more of a key player for Hammarby than James is for Chelsea. Like, and that's not that hard since like Chelsea is also more of a dominant team than Hammarby is. Like, if you compare
and they have like more complete squad, I would say, than a Swedish top team, because the squads aren't that big in Sweden and in the Swedish league.
Yeah, exactly. And the shot map is like very clustered around the golden zone in the penalty area, and very green as well. Like she scored 10 goals. Her key passes are mostly shorter passes into the box, coming from carries and passes. But you can see that they are, even though like, they are both coming from the right and left. So she's acting all over, which is interesting.
Yeah.
And Janogy, like, even though like we characterized her earlier with the data as an attacking midfielder, her expected goals per shot is 0.2, which is very high. And you can see that from the map being very close to goal, or like around where you shoot a penalty, so the penalty spot. And that's more of a like a poacher, a striker shooting map. If we look at her spider, it's not as broad maybe as the one we looked at before, but they still have a variation. Like, so she's mostly matching to the attacking star, just as Lauren James did. But if we compare Spider, like she's more of a mix of a inner forward number 10 and like a classical number 9 or some like maybe not a classic number 9 but a number 9. So she's like matching a lot with the poacher, the artist as well. And the poacher comes from her clinical finishing in the penalty area, and the artist from her creating chances and so on. A forward that generates chances really, and the deep threat is also like a good match for her, since she's receiving a lot of ball behind the defensive line, but also like running with the ball through the defensive line. Pass networks, and here we will see also a bit of a difference. So I looked at all the 26 games that Hammarby played, and she played, I don't know if she played all of them, but she played most, like almost all of the season.
Yeah, she played a lot.
And I think it was kind of interesting. So I took 3 different here because she's been acting a bit different. So like, you know, when you have a formation and you look in your app on your web page or whatever, you see something. But then when you look at a pass network, it's not necessarily the same. Like it could be 4-2-3-1, but how do they actually play? We could see with Arsenal, for example, they had some system that looks almost like a 4-2-2, 4-4-2, but that's maybe not what you would see if we watch the game on TV. And here you can see Hammarby, for example, they have some games where she's acting more of a striker to the left. You can see that they have midfielders behind, but she's acting more as a forward. Here she's acting as a more typical number 9. She's the one receiving all the balls, being more of a striker. And here is maybe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, Mia, but here is maybe more as she would play in the national team, like being more in the Lauren James position of like an attacking or inner forward or whatever.
I do think that when we were looking at the Sweden playing against China, she had a very free role, but so had Fridolina Rolfö. She also had a very free role, and it was very effective. Obviously, because I think Sweden was up 3-0 within 15 minutes. So.
So yeah, it's very interesting. You can see the different qualities. Like you could use her, and you can. If we talk about the Swedish national team, if she would play to the right and Rolfö to the left and Blackstenius as a number 9, for example, but really Janogy could play, like if Sweden national team would, she could. That's maybe not the first choice for Gerhardsson, but she could really play in Blackstenius' role as a typical number 9. She could also act as more of a number 10 in another system, or if Sweden would play with more classic 2 forwards, like in a 4-4-2 or 3-5-2 or something like that, she could play next to Blackstenius in a role like that. Or that's really what we've seen in Hammarby when we look at their positions. Okay, Janogy stats. So you can see that she scored a lot of goals. She is also a little bit above the line, but you could say that on average that she performed as the statistical model of expected goals expected her to score almost. That's still good, and like she's generating a lot of chances, but she's not as above the line as Monum and James that we talked about earlier.
No.
What should be mentioned is that it's harder to be above the expected line if you generate more chances. For Lauren James, for example, she had an expected goals per 90 that was less than half of Janogy's. So like the more chance you generate, it's harder to keep up a good flow. That's really the baseline of the statistical models. That like the more you make it, the more the players tend to match the expected line. And then we have expected threat and carries, and I think it's kind of interesting here that you can see that she's good at both. So there are some players that are more extreme, but you can see that she is compared to the other players, she can do both. Like she's not more to carries or more to passes. Like she can really do both, and we saw that in the Spider as well.
Yeah.
And when it comes to crosses and cross percentage, we can see that there are, of course, forwards that attacking midfielders that does more crosses, but she does a lot of them, and her percentage is as expected or even better, really. The accuracy of her crosses. And And when it comes, and I also looked at the more deep threat play role, or more of the number 9, you can see that when we compared expected threat received to touches in the box, and to make, like, if you have a high expected threat received and lower touches in the box, that's maybe because you, if you're a target, if you're more of a target, then maybe you don't have the amount of touches because you finish on the first touch or you pass on the first touch. While as if you're more acting as a technical player, an artist, or a forward, then maybe you dribble into the box and have a few actions in the box, and then you shoot or pass. And you can see that Janogy is somewhere in between. Like she's both acting as a target that can finish on the first touch, and also like being the dribbler creator that moves the team with the ball into the box.
I do think she showed that against China as well. So
yeah.
Yes, and here I just noticed that it looks like it's still Madelen Janogy spider down there, because under compared it says average CV.
Yeah.
Madelen Janogy, but Anna Sandberg, who made her debut for Sweden, went from KIF Örebro to BK Häcken last season, in the middle of it, actually. No, perhaps not in the middle of it, but she started off with KIF Örebro before she went to BK Häcken.
In the summer transfer window, but I don't remember exactly when either. But,
no, me neither. But she's a very young player, 19 years old, and she is a fullback, a left fullback, which we need in Sweden, I would say. So this is interesting. She made her debut against China, and I think she can be proud of what she achieved in that game.
Yeah, and there will be plenty more national games to come, I think. So what I did here is, like, the Janogy part down there, it's Sandberg spider. It's me that didn't replace that image. So if it's on the next picture as well, it's me. But what I'm gonna do here is that I'm gonna show Anna Sandberg's performance in Örebro, and then like doing scouting later on, like try maybe see what Häcken saw. I don't know if they use data, but what they saw with their traditional scouting, and like how she has developed as a player in Häcken. Because what I think when we look in these slides is that you have promising players playing in the teams, maybe in it could be playing in Damallsvenskan and going to the Women's Super League, or playing in a team further down the table and going to a top team. It's could be hard to make that transition. But what we can see here on Sandberg is that she really blossomed, and like a lot of new qualities has been developing in a better team, and that's very interesting.
Yeah, because KIF Örebro, I do think that when you watched her in KIF Örebro, you could see that she was really good at intercepting the ball, and she was quite good in positioning herself. Obviously, because KIF Örebro had to defend more than BK Häcken.
Yeah, and you can see that maybe her defensive skills were like put more to the test, but you could still see, like, in the offensive qualities, like KIF Örebro had less ball than Häcken, but you could still see from when it comes to progressing the ball a lot with carries and generating chances with carries, those numbers were still top of the league, even though she played in KIF Örebro.
Yes.
And dribble. So the technical side was still there. If we move and we have the same spiders, but we have in Häcken, you can see the transition. If you look to the right, you can see that it comes more to an offensive characteristic. And if we look to the positional spider, you can see it more of expanding, really. So then it becomes almost a Una Batia spider, but not really. But you have like she's at the top at most of them. So like she's still at the top when it comes to expected threat carries, like and it's when it comes to progress in the ball, great distance with carries as well, dribbling. But she's also very high up when it comes to like her defensive side. She got the chance to win balls higher up the pitch from Häcken being a more dominant team and having more possession on the offensive half. But also, I think it's kind of interesting that her like pass metric went from 0 to hero. Like
Yeah, and we also this is gonna be her new nickname, Jesper. The Damallsvenskans Ona Battier.
yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe if Ona Battier leaves Manchester United can buy her.
Yeah. But I think that Ona Battier is playing on the right.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
I thought too fast. I know
Yeah.
that, of course.
You got too excited
I
because you
got too
like
excited.
Manchester United. Yeah, we know that.
Okay, and her crosses went up as well, so she really blossomed and had a great season. We when we compare the stats later, we can see that she kept her high level in some stats.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to the pass metrics here, we're looking at Häcken here. So you have like she's really owing the entire outer corridor on the left side. So her defensive metrics is a little bit lower. That's natural, but you can see that the biggest cluster is on the offensive half, and she was also top when it came to winning ball on the offensive half. When it comes to fullback, she was one of the best.
Yeah, and obviously also that is just how Häcken is playing football. You can see that they want to win the ball higher up the pitch.
Yeah.
And maybe it's like that also, that a player like Anna Sandberg is really, like you said, she is really grown into a really good player in the Swedish league. Also a player that's going to be really interesting to follow this season. But maybe playing in BK Häcken will not only make her better in general, but also that's a team where she could really show off her true qualities.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely, and I don't think she will be in Häcken for that long either if she's performing at this level. And yeah, when it comes to pass and carries, you can see that she's of course like not passing only in the corridor. She's delivering the ball into Anasiki and other players in the central corridors. But when it comes to carries, if we compare to Lauren James, now Lauren James is not a fullback, but you can see that Anna Sandberg is mostly like keeping with and like carrying the ball in the outer corridor and like moving to the final third of the outer corridor and then delivering the pass or the cross into the penalty area. She's not running into the central areas and zone 14 and into the penalty area in that sense. She's more keeping with and delivering the crosses.
Yeah.
Yeah, when it comes to progressive actions, there's a lot of blue and yellow, and just as I talked about before, the carries are more in the outer corridor, staying in the outer corridor, while as the passes are moving in centrally. Key passes, a lot of crosses and into the golden zone. And when it comes from receptions, they're all of them mostly like in the outer corridor on the offensive half. You have some to the left, and that's coming from her, switching side for some occasion. But she's playing at left back. And the shot map, I don't know. It's not really that interesting to look at here. She has one goal. That's good in the few shots she had. So. And yeah, now I believe it's going to be 2. I believe I made it's 2. So now we have Kiefer Bro first, and then we can see that she was really she was a fullback that characterized all avatars equally. So she was really a complete fullback, or like a perfect fullback in Kiefer Bro sense. Like so, she was still maybe. She was characterized as a wing back in Kiefer Bro, but she was like really performing well defensively as well. So you can see her matching defensive minded. But when it comes to progressor, she had a little bit less of a score, and that's maybe because Kiefer Bro was not the dominant team in that way, and she was not maybe delivering. She didn't have the pass side. We saw that expected threat passes was like really, or gain pass were like non-existing in Kiefer Bro, but then they went to the top in Häcken. And that's really the change we make when we go into Häcken. Like then she falls on wing back. She still has the defensive minded from being very dominant defensively, but she loses the the wing back, and that's mostly because her passes changed characteristic. Like she didn't maybe make the amount of passes that she does in Häcken in Kieferbro. In Häcken, she's doing a lot of passes, delivering from the central to the final third, but also the crosses, and she's always progressing the ball at a very good rate. So you could see her expected threat numbers being at the top. So she's characterized of being a progressive fullback, and the progressive fullback can also be described a bit more as a playmaking fullback in that sense, that she's also very good in generating chances and creating for the team from the fullback position.
You could see when she played for Sweden now that, especially, I do think her crossing, it showed that she's better at the crosses.
Yeah.
From playing in Örebro. But also the fact is that in Häcken, she probably, I'm going to say probably, but you can see that when you look at these passing networks, that she comes to those opportunities more in BK Häcken.
Yeah.
Because of the team is playing higher up, and they are a more dominant team, while Kieferbro was pushed back quite much.
Yeah. And in the pass networks here, I have 2 from Örebro, and that's I wanted to first show like some of the like pass networks from Örebro being in the middle, or the like the defense, or like the lower parts of the middle of the table in Damascenska. They were not close at being for degradation like any time of the season, but they were not really close. Like especially in the first half of the season, they were lower down. And also, like if you come from the pitch, if we look at the pass networks here, they have a lot of them where she's acting more of the defensive side of the pitch. You can still see that, and I think that's what developed into a progressor from being a wingback. You can still see if you compare to other players in the team, she was one of the players in Kieferbro that was the most successful in having the ball and being a good motor in the offense. Like she has the biggest circle in this game. So, and I think that's what Häcken saw, and that like if we put her in a better team like Häcken and we make her have the chance, she will add these qualities, and she could become more of a playmaker in our team on the fullback.
Not that wide though. Not that wide.
Not that wide.
Like, no, not in any of the pass netting works here.
No, and that could be a coincidence of which I've chosen as well.
Exactly. Yeah.
The heat map, so is a better answer of really where she had her actions. But if we look here, this is a game where Kieferbro were playing more as Häcken, like when they met IFK Kalmar or Brommapojkarna or BP or something like that. And she was acting more on the offensive half. She also has like a lot of passes, most in the team, and their expected threat value is high, mostly from carrying in that game. And if we look at any of the Häcken pass networks, they mostly look at like this, that like more of the entire pass network is darker. They have a lot more ball, but you can see that she's delivering ball all the way up to the strikers, and she also came to Häcken in the summer, and Häcken had like a tougher spring. Like they were still, I think they were like 4 or something ahead of the Euros, and then they had an amazing fall part of the season where if you would make a table only for the fall, they would I don't know if they would be ahead of Rosengård because they didn't really miss that many points, but they would be a clear number 2, and they also like advanced a lot in the table during that.
They did. She was probably a big part of it, though.
Yeah. Definitely. So here, the difference here from when we looked at the other players is that here we have 2 dots. So in blue we have her in Kieferbro, and in red we have her in Häcken. So in some of these we can see that this is just a characteristic of like, are you a fullback that are doing more passes, or are you a fullback that are doing more tackles? And you can see that she's when it comes to her matching well with the defensive minded, is because when you adjust for possessions, he has a very high amount of successful tackles. But you could see that when she moved to Häcken, she actually improved in both metrics. Like she had more passes per 90 successful, and that's maybe not that surprising when like moving into Häcken and a better team. but also that her success rate, if you remove like possession out of the picture and adjust for it so all the teams can be compared equally, you can see that the amount of successful tackles actually improved as well, which is interesting. Although like her position doesn't move that much, so you can see that she's still, you can also talk in that sense that she managed to perform as good when moving into a newer environment, more competitive environment, which is very impressive. Like it's maybe it's not rare at all, maybe more common that a player needs some adjustment time than just going into a new club and delivers immediately.
Exactly.
Here when it comes to expected threat and carries, we talked about her passes being pretty low in Örebro, but then you can see that she moves into the Lauren Hemp corner of fullbacks almost.
I love that those sayings. Like now she's the Swedish league's Ona Battier, but the left back, and now she's up in the Lauren Hemp corner.
Yeah, so she really, you could say that she became of being a promising playmaking fullback to become the best fullback when she played in Häcken when it comes to playmaking, which is truly
that's impressive. Yeah.
And also that she has like both. Some players are maybe more characterized as for one of them, like that you have either you have the carries part or you have the passes part. Yeah.
Well, this is a graph you say we don't need to say anything about it because it's so good.
Yeah.
So we'll leave it.
Yeah. And we talked about tackle, like the tackles before, but this is more of a defensive spider. So here you have the tackles per 90 adjusted for possession, and you have the interceptions per 90. And you can see here that if you remove possession, then you can compare Häcken and Örebro more equally, and you can see that her position really didn't move. Like she managed to perform as good defensively, or even a bit better when she moved to Häcken. And then here is like gain pass, gain carry. And what's the difference here between the expected threat part is that expected threat is like increasing more when you come to especially the final third. So being a playmaker and really doing those important actions in the final third, where like the passes and carries make more difference when it comes to increasing the odds of your team scoring. While as gain pass and gain carry, that's more for a fullback or a defensive midfielder that has also maybe the playmaking skills, but are acting lower down the pitch. They won't receive as high expected threat values, but they will progress the ball forward a lot. And that's what you can see here with the game pass and game per 90, where you can see maybe a slighter difference. This is the only where she maybe a little bit increased. I wouldn't say that's a bad thing, but you could see that in Örebro, she was maybe more running, and that maybe come from her being more alone when she maybe advanced or whatever. But like her gain carries decreased, but also from her actually passing the ball more. And and you can see the gain passes, like the distance that she progressed the ball forward with, passes increased.
I do think it's quite it's a good step going from a mid-table team, as we need to call Kiefer Bro, and then to a top team.
Definitely. And
the last one,
or second to last. We'll
no,
see. No, the last one. Okay, the last one. So here we have entries into the box per 90, and we have final third entries per 90 on the x-axis. So that's what they stand for. And here you can see, and this is a lot coming from her playing in a more offensive team, that she had those pretty good numbers when she played at Kiefer Bro, but then when she came to Häcken, that has more possession higher up in the field, her numbers improved, and she got even more final third entries and even more entries into the box per game. And yeah, that was all of this episode,
as we will call it. It always gets longer than we expected to be, because I wanted 5 players for this episode, but I think you did good in telling me that, okay, we need to keep it.
I thought about I thought 2 first, and then you said 5, and then I said,
Yeah,
yeah, okay,
I know.
maybe
But there
maybe
was
4.
there was so many good players in the break, but we will be back in 2 weeks, and I do think we will have to get back on what we are going to talk about then.
Yeah.
Maybe the Champions League, or maybe we should dive deep into Stina Blackstenius and comparing her to the national team role and Arsenal. Who knows?
Who knows?
I'm
And if
just
you,
putting it out there.
yeah, and if you have any ideas, reach out
Yeah,
as well. We'll
let
take
us
them
know.
into consideration. And yeah,
With that being said, I'm gonna go have my dinner because I have another podcast recording in 1 hour and 27 minutes. Gotta love the scheduling part. But Jesper, have a good weekend because I know you will have the day off tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken. Did you say that? You said that you were gonna be free Thursday and Friday, like. But did you say free,
next,
like in we could do it, or?
in this week, I think I may I meant more like in the sense that I have time to do this.
Yeah, you have time. You have time to record. That's good. Okay,
Yeah.
communication is everything. Well, have a good evening then, and until next time. See you.
Until next time. See you.
Yeah.